Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Metal podcast. I'm Kiki. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm so happy to be here with my co host.
Hi, I'm Martha. My pronouns are also she, her.
As you can see, we are recording these intros for the Tuska Forum by Bleeding Metal 2025 episodes in one go. And this week, we are bringing you a very special talk about a topic that has a lot to do with metal. There's this intersection between gamers and metalheads, and every year I try to bring a session that is just for that type of nerd like me. And this time, the topic of the session was impact through storytelling in games and music. And for that, I brought Natasha Skult from My Tale Games, a Finnish independent studio. And we talked about how the stories can actually make impact in the players and the listeners, how that is very similar in music and in games. I really hope you like the talk. Welcome everyone to Tuska Forum by Bleeding Metal. My name is Kiki. My pronouns are she, her. I am the host of the Bleeding Metal podcast and of the forum as well for the third consecutive year. I'm so happy and grateful to be able to do that, and thank you all for being here. Now, before we start our session, let's please give a warm welcome to Natasha. She is a cross-platform developer. Yes, let's do that first. Natasha is a cross-platform game developer, works in narrative design, and we are going to talk about how stories that are told through games as well as music, because Nat is also a metalhead, how these stories can impact the world for some change, which is our topic for the whole forum. Heavy Impact is the title. Nat, let's get to know you a little bit better. I just did a very quick summary of all that you do, but there is a lot more to it.
I will also try to keep it short. As a day job, I'm running an indie game studio called My Tale, and we focus on narrative-driven games. End up always doing RPGs, but let's not go there. And besides that, I'm also an academic. I just submitted my doctorate on interactive storytelling with quantum computing. So how can we do as game designers, how can we use emerging technologies for our own, and now I'm not a physicist, but then how can we use that tech for our benefits, especially for our players? And I have been teaching game design and digital art and interactive experiences for now 14 years at University of Turku. So yes, I'm old, and I'm very old metalhead, super old, thanks to my mother and my father, but especially mom was a metalhead, even though normally looking in a sense, because, you know, like 80s, 90s, Serbia, Belgrade, where I'm born, that was not really a thing. But at home, that's how I was brought up. And as that's not enough, I'm also super active with game developers communities here in Finland and internationally, especially with We Love Games, which is an organization here from Finland, but operating globally on diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially bringing more people, because games bring people together. Doesn't matter of their backgrounds and all other interests or borders, we don't care about that. Same like music. So there is a lot of stuff, of course, that we as people enjoy and brings us together. And besides We Love Games, also IGDA, which stands for International Game Developers Association. As you can see, I have no life. I just do stuff.
Yes, and you're also active in the Women in Games community, which is how we met.
Yes.
Yes. Because I am also a gamer and a game streamer, actually, but that is an intersection that is not very uncommon. Actually, there is a lot of metalheads that game on the side, or at the same time, probably. And that was beautiful, what you were just saying, that games as well as music bring people together. And that's something that we have been talking about throughout this weekend as well, so far, and we will keep talking about it, because community is something really important that we need to keep building, we need to keep making the metal community better, especially in terms of human rights, which are so fragile in today's world.
Yeah, it's like one step forward, 2 or 3 back, but never give up. And we are stronger together, so we have to keep up doing what we're doing in order to make things better. I fully agree with that. And when it comes to bringing people together and this correlation between, we will talk, of course, of the storytelling side, but when you think about metal music and games, one of the things that immediately comes to my mind, because again, as a metalhead and really hardcore nerd, I was my whole life nerd, not just game stuff, but that's who I am. And both metal music and games, because I was privileged to have gaming as a normal part of my upbringing. I said my parents were not, they were also gamers, but they were just regular people. My father was a businessman, my mom did books for kids, but board games, my father, he was traveling, he would bring us anything that moves 2 pixels on the screen, we had it. So I had that privilege to have gaming as a normalized thing, even back in 80s and 90s as such, which is, I know, not a common thing. And from there, I never thought that I would, because my background, actually my official occupation from the educational perspective, I'm a traditional classical painter. I'm an artist. How do you, from painter, become a game developer, designer, and now work with quantum tech? It's really not that hard. Or there's so much connected things that people are not aware of, because I wouldn't be as good as storytelling and doing it, because that's what visual art is all about. When you think about it from the traditional perspective, from word to image, from image to a moving image, and now from moving image to interactive image, this emotional engagement, what we bring as creators, as artists, to our audience, while at the same time now games bring completely new medium of expression where besides us as creators, what we create for our players, we allow our players to create their own stories, their own experiences, and most importantly, what people need to remember also, especially from the game design perspective, is that it's not just that we create experiences, we create memories. We create very vivid memories. Because when I ask you, okay, Kiki, let's say you were playing Mario. So what did you...
No, that does not resonate.
Let's just say, because people know Mario, no matter where we are. Let's say you played Mario. And I was like, so how did your game go? You're not going to say, oh, my Mario was jumping, collecting coins, and saving princess. No, you would say, I did this and that. And the point is that it's my memory of what I did in this now digital world. Now, metal music and games, what they have, the lore and atmosphere, but also from the storytelling perspective, when you have fantasy, that usually happens, and we just heard from the previous guests also, to have this light in all this darkness, and which is a very protagonist kind of thing in metal music, regardless of the genres of metal music, because as mentioned, I'm old. I went through all the phases, all the metal genres. I still stayed mostly with Black Death and Gothic, but either way, all of that, that's games. It's the journey. It's the stuff that we give to the players in experiences, and this fantasy. And by fantasy, I don't mean now necessarily high fantasy, dragon stuff or whatever, or sci-fi. I mainly talk here about not being part of this world, meaning some sort of escapism. Exactly. So basically, giving them that opportunity to experience something else, and more importantly, what they want to experience. Because as a game designer, it's beautiful to have the options for the players, that they experience the world in whichever way they want. The truth is, we, at least this far, we know exactly what's going to happen in a game at any point, even in the social gaming and so on. We know what's going to happen because we control the world and rules and setting of that world. But if the player feels that some change, something actually made impact, that their choices had impact, that's the illusion of choice, and that's the craft of game design, that we make you believe that whatever you did was really impactful. And that's so powerful thing. World building, but also giving that opportunity for players to become whoever they want.
Yeah.
In whichever way, within the safety of their, not just home or wherever, but even social safety, in a sense, in social gaming and so on. So there are so many, and you think that, oh yeah, there's such a huge system that makes it possible, especially moderation in the social gaming and so forth. But that's another story.
Yeah, that's another topic. But what you were just saying, I think there's the two sides of the concept of escapism that you were just mentioning, because it's not only the escapism into the story that is maybe in a different world or a different universe, but it's also the escapism of thinking, you were saying it might not be real, but thinking that I am in control of this narrative, of this story and the decision making, while in reality, we so often are not in control of our surroundings, of the geopolitical happenings everywhere. And so everything that happens around us can make us feel so powerless. And through a video game, I can escape into a world where I actually have power.
Absolutely.
That's relieving. I had never thought about that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This is blowing my mind. It's so important what you said, though, about the impact, the emotional impact, the connections that we are creating as well when we are playing games, and the memories, everything that becomes part of our story, and that also influences the decisions in our behaviors, and how we treat other people, and how we relate to our environment. And in your case, it's also your decision to make your games as diverse as possible, for example. So how do you try to make the worlds and universes you create more diverse and help to have that impact in other people's lives as well, to see them see reality or fantasy from others' perspectives, from maybe marginalized identities' perspectives as well?
I have so much to say about this, but first of all, I want to clarify one thing. In my current job, where we are an indie studio, 25 people in the team. So I just want to clarify this. We are in a very privileged position, my team and I, that for the past 8 years, we have developed the company in which not only that we are really big on the diversity within the team, because one first thing, you can't really make innovation with same type of people. That becomes an echo chamber. And we see that everywhere. We see that also in social media, literally all the time. So for the innovation, for the way of touching the voices of others, you need others to be part of it. Why I'm saying that from our current perspective, for the past 8 years, what we managed to do in creating the team in which that's one of the most important stuff, that everything that we do, even for the team, but also for the products that we do, can resonate to others. And I'll get back to your question exactly how we do it. But as independent studio, we're also self-finance and self-publishing doing on our own, which is very unique. Why does this matter? When you have some other money involved by someone else, even publishers, investors, and so on, partners, or maybe you're working on the client work and so on, you can only have certain amount of space to do such things, especially depending on what requirements of the product it is, because at the end of the day, all the games are products.
Yeah.
It's business. We want to make sure that our games, that as they go out, that we can sell them in order to make more, so that we can do what we love doing and that others enjoy what we are doing. It's a circle. But when you're working in corporate world, which I was before, and my coworkers as well, and my especially co-founders, you're very limited of what you can and cannot do, and especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion and so forth. And you can bet how much I was trying to fight the system. Plus, as a woman in tech, also coming from art, because the same thing, to be honest, women artists also are always misjudged in general. There is not, let's say, high respect towards women in art and tech. But in Finland, it's way different. Here, it's better. But still, there is a lot of place for improvement, of course. And the thing is that what I realized is that there is absolutely no point, especially when you're working with mostly men-dominated industries, such as games, is that when you face this sort of backfire of some sort of your ideas or something that you would like to do, they will, at the end of the day, understand the numbers. So data is not going to lie. So one thing that I love to do, especially if someone says, no, this is not going to work, nobody cares, blah, 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 or this is stupid, whatever comments I would get, I would work on it to show, and nothing makes me happier than proving a white man wrong, by the way. That's my shit. So basically, I will prove them wrong with the work. Work will speak for itself. So if I go and show that how this particular design choice, which involves any kind of, let's say, DIY kind of approach or anything like that, that we really believe, or especially accessibility. I am really big on accessibility in games. So, especially as a designer, so that's extremely important for me. That more people can enjoy or try what we are doing. And then I show the data, and then I shut their mouth. So the point is, don't be afraid to actually do that extra mile, because sometimes it's way better and faster instead of having this kind of discussion which is not going anywhere because they're not listening. One big thing of discussion, you have to have the listening part as well as talking part. And unfortunately, certain decision makers in corporate worlds, they don't listen. They don't listen to themselves even, not mentioning to the players or to someone else. To bypass that, I use data. And in business as well, diverse teams. Literally, there's so many studies done with this. How much businesses are more successful, the ones who have more diverse teams, way of approaching things, and so on. So it's because it's not just about representation, it's also diversity of skills and the way of thinking. But the way of thinking comes from the diversity of experiences. Exactly. And you can't have that from the same people who know each other since kindergarten, living in a bubble, and now they work something like that. Of course, we know that there are examples where something can come up like that, but in majority, you need, of course, diversity for any kind of innovation to actually take place.
Yes, and we've been talking about this abstractly, but we are talking about the games industry as well as the metal industry and community that is still very male-dominated, and the point is to have more women, more people of color, more queer people, more people with disabilities, to bring all of their expertise and perspectives and experiences and their voices and their way of thinking and their different approaches to whatever work they're doing or companies need them to do to benefit the product and the environment. And I think that applies to music as well. We've been talking about that for the past 2 days, and it's just so important. But isn't it exhausting, though?
I can tell you this, as someone who has worked with the big publishers, also big investments and whatnot, it's not more difficult to create a business out of thin air, like we did, and to have a very diverse team and actually put all of that into
From the
building
beginning.
from the start, then dealing with these, especially men in the boardrooms. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of stuff, but then when you reach certain age also, trust me, I pick my battles. Certain battles I don't want to deal with, especially when it comes to that. Nobody said this is easy, but I'm just saying this is not hard either, or harder than any other way. Especially listening. Listening is one of the skills that is so important. If only people would be actually developing that further, even from the early age, which now we see. I mean, I have a child, and I can totally see, even in the schooling, how much new generations are way better at listening than we are. And it's fascinating. Like, they will save us maybe, but let's see, either way, it's really refreshing to see that how open-minded and how much more listening the newer generations have than, for example, even my generation. Not mentioning in our parents' generation, things are shifting, and I think that we just need to ride that wave and not to stop. Even if they are trying to stop, make extra waves between. There's always a way, and that's why I always think that we have to work together. So games industry, music industry, and movie industries, these three industries have been collaborating forever, basically. And games industry, even that it's the youngest, yet really huge, especially nowadays, it escalated quite fast compared to others. But the thing is that we stole so much of the best practices from music and movies, and now these practices that we have, best practices, are actually taken back, or we are sharing this new knowledge with music, the movie industries. And it's really fascinating to see how certain changes actually didn't take place. The practices are the same since ever, not mentioning the copyright laws and so on also haven't changed since ever either. Like, what? Now AI will be forcing to do all of that, but that's a completely different topic. But there will, at least that is forcing us for the new policies. So policymakers, and also now at least these things are also going forward towards protecting the artist, protecting the human as a creator, and then in which way the AI tools and emphasis on tools will be the way to enhance that art from the creator's perspective. But of course, what we see currently is really a mess on the market with the business side of things, but that's because business and tech is going faster than the policy making. But things will settle down. We need to be patient, but also we need to work with policymakers, and they work with us to make it happen. So again, stronger together. We have to be there for each other as creators across industries and across media. And that's what we do, especially in games industry.
That is actually a point that I think is very interesting, though, what you were just mentioning about AI changing copyright laws and the concept of an intellectual property, what that means. How do you think that is going to develop? Because I think, especially in the music industry, there is a lot of fear about basically being replaced by robots.
I mean, that's the fear, I think, in most of the industries, literally at the moment, not just creative industries, all sorts of automations, but also the faster production stuff. But at the end of the day, this is unfortunately not the first or the last of such moments. Back to me being old, I remember when same thing happened with, for example, for architects, with the AutoCAD came out. That, oh, now AutoCAD is going to take our jobs. And so, no, it was a tool now for architects to actually get way faster stuff forward, but it took time. Photoshop was the same thing. And somehow humanity, even so, we have been still there balancing all of this and still putting human as a first. I would see this is another one. Unfortunately, now with the amount of social media and the propaganda and everything else that we see out there, just Google anything. Whatever you Google now, there's just AI stuff coming at you, even images and so on. And now you get nonsense, even more nonsense than before. And it's so easy to see, of course, AI stuff. But then again, there will be moments that they will be very hard to see because it's getting better. So now how are we going to handle that? And as I said, policymakers are working on that, especially EU-wise. They are publicly showing in what directions things are going and how they're handling all of that. But then again, regionally it will be different. US will have their own stuff. Let's say China has their own, of course. I love Miyazaki's whole approach of this sort of towards AI. It's really interesting to see how different regions plus their creators, especially the ones with a lot of power, how they are basically fighting that, which is again very metal, isn't it? But it takes a village.
I heard an idea about how to control that. How we see in the supermarket nowadays, the fruits and vegetables, some are marked as organic, that we will get to see that in music products as well, or in video games, or in art stuff. Like this is, put the AI sticker on it.
We have already joking in the coding side. How is it? A free-range coder will be a very popular title to have in your LinkedIn, but so that you're not ChatGPT coder, but you're actually free-range coder, that you know how to code. That's already something that it's funny, but at the same time, we have to understand one thing. We have to listen to the audience. Same goes with music, same goes with movies, same goes with games. Why I'm saying this? Corporates, especially the big boys in a certain chairs with their Excels, they will say, oh, AI, faster, better, scooter, whatever. Instead, listening to the players who don't want AI-generated stuff. Because we as developers, we know how hard it is to create this emotional, engaging experience with atmospheres, and we're not just generating content. It's a whole thing that comes into designing the experience. And people keep forgetting in the corporate world that it's not about you and your numbers. It's about the people. Will they actually enjoy the experience? And they don't when it's in the current disorder, they don't. Players don't. So the point is that it might be part of this natural selection and Darwinism where players will be the ones who will basically kill it in a sense. When they're those who would like it, then they will. But the point is there is nothing wrong. Then you find your product. This is a free market. Everyone can find their products. So, for example, the game that we just launched, Willow Guard, that's not for everyone. We experimented a lot on that on the game design perspective. And we know it's a niche game. So people will find their products. But the people are actually directing the products. And I think that will be the same thing with the music and so on, because how much, especially in the popular music per se, what I understood, again, I'm not in the industry, but what I understood is that the ones who make decisions for what songs even would be going, for what artists and so on, that they are making the mistakes as well because they didn't listen to the audience, actually. And so the same thing, we need to listen to people, back to listening. Because that's the thing, we create something for others, not just for ourselves. I don't make games for me. I make games for others, for you guys. And I want to know what you want. And that's the thing. It's a dialogue. And especially in interactive mediums such as games, it's actual dialogue. Your actions are part of, I see what you do, and therefore I understand what you want. Therefore, I will make changes in the game according to your needs, your wants, including accessibility. That's the thing that I think we have to focus on the players back on, or listeners, or whichever industry now we are talking about as a creatives. Listen to the ones
The audience.
to the audience.
And we have questions from the audience. Talking about listening, now get to listen to your questions.
Wonderful. I love the questions from the audience always.
This goes back to what you were saying with your upbringing and your parents having games around the house, because that was not my upbringing. My parents were like, computers are for studying.
Okay. That was true as well, but yeah, okay.
But the question is, why do you think that some parents are against their children playing video games?
First of all, back to me being a nerd. I was such a horrible nerd with straight A's and really didn't want to meet anyone. I didn't like people nor kids. And even my Barbies didn't like to play with other Barbies. And my robots, I had all the robots and He-Man and stuff because, of course, the 80s and so on. Basically, they were happy that I would take the book away and do fun stuff. So in that way, they were just like, oh, thank God she's not doing my calculus because I was really good at math. Doing that, she's actually now doing something fun. And plus, they enjoyed games, so never had that sort of fear that, oh, I'm going to slide into something. Oh, yeah, I remember. So as a metalhead, especially in high school, oh, boy, I was literally looking like the creature of hell with long red hair till here, all the chains, corsets. Oh, glorious times. Anyway, and I was not ever smoking, drinking, nothing. I was so lame. Going home, reading, and games. And the thing is that everyone would even comment to my parents, like, how do they allow that I look a certain way? I was like, what, how dare you? So my parents were always defending me, because actually that was the only rebellion kind of thing when you think of the 90s or 2000s in Belgrade, which is all turbo folk stuff, basically. And then I come as a little creature of hell kind of walking around. And it was a shock, because you couldn't see that many, let's say, goths or metalheads necessarily on the streets at the time. But then my friends from school as well and goths, they were also such horrible nerds. So we would be behind the school to kind of go for the next class, like what we're doing, and eating chocolate bars, and they would say, oh, they're doing drugs behind, doing the rituals. Like, sure, with this candy bar, this awesome stuff. That's why they were not afraid. They knew exactly what I was into. They always encouraged, like, no, this is absolutely fine. And now my daughter, she's 16 and she's getting into the whole thing, and I'm so proud.
That's amazing. But as you're speaking from your own experience, there is the stigma there, or there was.
Oh, there's a lot of stigma. But my parents were always behind me, and my rest of the family were friends, because I also had normal-looking people, friends, and they were also always defending me if someone would come, especially bullies or something like that. But that's the thing, if you are, just as we said, it was said previously, you have to be true to yourself and show who you are, no matter that how frightening sometimes is and so on. I know that it feels like I'm here talking to you with confidence, at least it might feel that way. I am still super introverted, shy goth in the dark corner, but I'm trained to speak publicly and do this. So communication goes all the way towards the part of listening. But starting from yourself, be true to yourself.
Nice. Kata wants to know, how does heavy metal music inspire you as a game maker?
Making games, for sure. So many influences, actually, we have for even narrative and in our games from different music and different genres, because not just metal, but also from other genres, depending what we are doing. For example, Willow Guard is very much Witcher-inspired game. And for that, the folk medievalish kind of steps there, but definitely lots of influences from especially metal music comes into my work as an artist, as an art director, as a game designer, as even a researcher, to be honest. One of the bands that really had a huge impact on me is actually Apocalyptica. I love classical. Cello is my favorite instrument. I don't play anything, but I would put cello everywhere if I can. So I was insane fan of Apocalyptica, especially until, let's say, their album Reflections or so. But this whole thing of breaking the norms of the instruments to the genres, to the things, and they did so much of that, and I found myself in that. And that's what I love with other art forms as well. Like when someone is brave enough to try, because what is going to happen? Just do stuff, try it. So yeah, music definitely has been, Apocalyptica in that sense, have been a big influence for most of my artistic career and so on, in the back, kind of, along with other bands. But I'm just thinking now from the Finnish bands. But then, of course, depends what kind of game you are designing. When there are games that are focused on the music and the sound as an integral part of the design, then of course you have to follow that truly for your players' experiences and so on. I hope I answered.
I think so. The next question, Floyd wants to know, do you think games help with mental health, and how do they help with mental health?
Yes, they do. Depends on the game, of course, and depends on you as a player. But I would say, same like any other entertainment media. Let's start with entertainment media. You will play the type of games, because it's not just that one type of game you enjoy doing. We usually play or enjoy playing different kinds of games, different kinds of, different platforms and so on. So same like movies. You don't every day watch very specific stuff, like Netflix, especially streaming, or music. So like you are gonna listen based on your mood and whatever else. So same goes with games. You will be wanting to play different kind of games, even if it's a simple match 3 thing, to shooting zombies or managing star fleets and whatnot. The point is, it depends in which mood you are at. Besides, the games have been a huge influence, besides storytelling, to the mental well-being, but also this ability to express yourself in a very safe environment, because games are very carefully designed digital environments where it is a safe space. Think about farming simulator. You are doing something, but it's obviously safe, meaning that in the real life, if you would go do farming, there are so many things that can go wrong. Here, even if it goes wrong, first of all, you're safe, nothing happens to you. Yeah. Secondly, you can try again. And failure is completely different from the real world, because games encourage you to try again, do again. If nothing else, therefore, with the mental health, games have been such a big impact. Now, it depends on the person. If you have a therapist, I would recommend to talk with therapists, like what kind of games maybe would be good for you in specific area to explore. But there are games of all sorts, so definitely there are ways to find you the right match for whatever thing you want to explore.
There's so many really good questions. I'm so sorry that I have to pick a few. What is your personal best video game soundtrack, your favorite?
There are many, actually. First of all, Doom. That's pure metal. But from recent ones, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, from the AAA, there are so many. Witcher 3, it's a classic with their soundtrack, especially with this kind of folk Slavic stuff going on. Oh, Deus Ex, for example, and Skyrim. There's fascinating stuff in mobile, for example, Monument Valley, many other mobile games. But the problem with mobile is that usually people don't necessarily listen as much. Yeah. You might, but still it's kind of muted device as you are playing on the go. That's why mostly I mentioned these from console and PC. But from the most recent ones, I would go with these AAA ones. And yeah, Witcher 3, I can't get over it.
Also, you know your way in licensing.
Yes.
There are musicians in the audience as well. What would be a fast way to get into video game music?
Just come work with us. It's as simple as that. Get in touch with whoever you know from the games industry. I know here even a handful of people in this audience as well, besides me in the games industry. Basically, there is a huge need for, of course, all sorts of audio and music composing. But one thing to give you straight away that you have to be aware of, designing for games is non-linear composing. So if you are considering working, and I'm not just talking about soundtrack for some AAA, that you can do, that you can even sell your existing songs to them. That's not a problem. But what I would, if you want to actually work with game developers, have in mind that the game music is created from the scratch to be non-linear. Google that and check that out. And I'm more than happy, just find me on LinkedIn, if nothing else. Get in touch, happy to tell you more and introduce you to the right people as well. But yeah, we need musicians. I just had a workshop in Tallinn with musicians about this. Let's do it also here in Helsinki and elsewhere. So happy to discuss that more. But so that's one thing. Learn about non-linear process of creating music and sounds, and also licensing goes differently. It doesn't work like in movies, and it doesn't work like with concerts and shows on the radio, TV show, whatever, wherever it's streamed, because games are not live performances. Keep this in mind. So that's one thing that I just want to clarify.
They don't give you royalties.
You can have royalties if you agree, and you can have revenue share and whatnot if you do it with the company that you agree with. Okay. But by law, it's not live performance. Therefore, be aware of that one detail, which is a very important detail. But there are ways to work around it. And I said this might also completely change now as the different laws are changing. But have that in mind, that it's the game is a product that someone plays in their free time. And it's complete, the laws in that sense do not then apply to games. This is one detail I would like to remember, if nothing else from this,
Perfect.
if that helps.
I think it does. It for sure is a first step in the right direction to get informed. And sadly, that is our time. We could stay here and talk forever.
There's always going to be next year, right?
Yes.
Kidding.
Yes.
But thank you so much for having me, and thank you for amazing questions, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Give it up for Natasha Skult.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another session of the Tuska Forum by Bleeding Metal. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss the episodes that we are bringing for you weekly. We have 3 more episodes from the Tuska Forum to go. And in between, we might bring other topics sometimes. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.